Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we have Shaundai Person. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. How are you?
I am great. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing so good. I'm so excited to have you on the show. I'm also just excited because every time that I meet somebody who has their own name as their Twitter handle, like no end initial or anything, I'm just like, man, I'm in the presence of a celebrity here. Like, who gets
That's
their own
great.
name?
It's like you think Beyonce, you think Shaundai.
Exactly.
All in the category.
But for folks who are not familiar with your work and why you deserve a just a name, can you give us a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, so I am Shaundai Person. I say if you get confused, I think of it like a day of the week, Friday, Saturday, Shaundai. You won't forget it. I'm a UI engineer at a company called SalesLoft, and we build software for salespeople, which is kind of serendipitous because I'm a career switcher. So last year, I decided to switch careers. I was in sales for 12 years and made a leap to something that I was passionate about, which was engineering. And so I sold software at SalesLoft and then taught myself how to code and made the switch into building the product.
Fascinating. So you're a career switcher inside of the same company.
Inside the same company.
That's super cool. I think you might be the first person I've heard make that. Like usually I've heard of people who, they were doing a thing and then they learned to program and then they join a company that like overlaps their skill sets. I love this story of actual like lateral growth like that, where you don't have to leave your job to get into a career that sounds more interesting to you. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was scary and it was a leap. So I'm a mom too, and I'm a mom to a 3-year-old. So sales is something that's secure, and people
Sure.
that are in sales in general are doing it for the money. I was good at sales, and it had been my career and what I saw my career trajectory going, sales management or sales enablement or something like that. So it was a leap. And then I consider it a lateral move, but some people might say because I was starting at the entry level, that it might have been a step down where I already had this credibility built as a salesperson. Now I'm going into kind of an entry level type role or level in engineering. But it was something that I was truly passionate about. Like I would spend my nights, I gave myself half an hour a night to learn to code, and then it would turn into 4 hours, 5 hours. I'd be up until like 1 a.m. So I was like, listen, I can make money doing engineering too, but I could also love it. So let me go
Yeah.
for it.
Well, that's amazing. Like I love those types of stories because it really, like I repeat this phrase over and over again of play until it pays, which is kind of find something that's interesting and chase it and then find a way to make that into what you do for a living, right? And I think that is not always practical, but I love it when it plays out like that, when you can just be curious and let that curiosity guide you towards something that, that can be a fulfilling career. So I'm so super happy to hear that worked out for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here, part of the space, and with
Yeah,
you.
of course, of course. And what's up, chat? I see a lot of familiar faces. I see Nikki out there, Linda, Luke. What's up, everybody? Alan, hi. It's good to see you all here. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us today. And why are we hanging out today, Shaundai? What is our plan today?
We're going to reactify today. We're going to reactify Earth Day. It's Earth Day. Happy Earth Day, everybody. We're going to reactify everything and we're going to style it up. So what we're going to do has nothing to do with Earth Day. I don't know why I'm talking about it so much, but we're going to talk about React and styled components today. Functional React.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about this because I feel like I get asked kind of like I talk about React a lot. Like, React is a big part of my day to day. But functional React, like this idea of like functional components versus class components and the differences, that's an interesting conversation because I don't think that we talk about it sometimes, but what is the benefit, would you say, of choosing one versus the other?
So when we're talking about choosing one over the other, we're talking about class components versus functional components, right?
Mm-hmm.
class components, and I'm speaking as someone who's self-taught. So as part of my curriculum, I learned both. It started out with class components, and this is the way that things were done back in the day, or are still done now. I shouldn't say that, back in ancient times. So with class components are kind of like a template, right? So it's kind of like a stamp. And then you can import these React components into different areas of your project or app and use them and make little tweaks along the way. With class components, there's also this concept of this, which sounds very confusing. And it was for me as I was learning it. And back in the day, there was no way to use state in functional components. So that's why you needed classes. So functional components were considered, it's not nice, but they're called dumb components, right? Because they couldn't hold state. Now you can do the same things that you used to be able to do with class components, but you don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about this concept of binding, like binding functions. You will use what's called hooks, which I think is a much cleaner way of expressing the same type of thing. To be able to start with a certain state, to manipulate the state, to update the state as well. And then you can express functions as either a variable or a function declaration, which would be function parentheses and then open curlies. And we'll talk about what that all means. But yeah, so I think the difference really between it, you can do the same types of things, but the reason why I lean toward in my own code functional components is because it's a lot cleaner. And when you're working with apps, when you're working with a company that's building these large apps, or even as a learner and trying to just wrap your head around the complexities that is React or JavaScript, I like to just take the easy route. Like, why not? I'm going to get to the same destination. Like, let's just take the straight road. So
right after my own heart, like that. I very much feel that. Like, why make things hard? I joke a lot about voluntary suffering, and I think that a lot of programming is built around this idea of voluntary suffering. Like, let's make this hard so that we can prove that we're smart or whatever it is. But I really do like the way you described that. And actually, I had a conversation with Sunil Pai, who is he used to be on the React team, and now he's off doing a lot of cool stuff with other things. We actually had him on the show recently talking about ES Build. I'll drop a link in the chat for y'all. But he did this really interesting visualization when hooks came out of how context was grouped in class-based components versus functional components. And what he did was he color-coded it. So he was like, this color for state, this color for what the UI looks like, this color for other things. And then he took a class component and he showed like the color was all mixed. Each line was different colors, things were weird. And then he moved it to hooks and the colors all grouped. And so everything was suddenly like contextually grouped. You could see exactly where everything was happening. And I thought that was such a brilliant way to show how hooks clean up React code.
Amen to that. Like, that's 100%. That's my life. Like, I want it clean. I want my colors organized, metaphorically speaking. So
color code everything always. Awesome. But yeah, so then the other thing that we were going to talk about today is styled components. And so styled components can be a little bit of an overloaded term. I see a question in the chat from Nikki already. Are we talking about a flavor of styled components, or are we talking about the library called styled components?
We are talking about the library called styled components. And so this is also called CSS in JS. So I'll give you the why. This is always critically important for anybody that's trying to learn. But there are a number of different ways that you can style an app or a CS file, and you're essentially using CSS, but you have the option. Traditionally, this is the way that I was originally taught, is to in your HTML you can import, or in your JS file you can import a separate style sheet, dot CSS file, I think it's called. It's been so long since I did it. Another way to do it is to do your CSS inside of JS. And so what this styled components library allows you to do is you're using what's called template literals, and we'll talk through what that actually means for those who don't know. But really what you're doing is you're using the same type of CSS, the same descriptors and everything right within your JavaScript file. And you can also, because it is a really JavaScript, you can also add in complex functionality where, you know, you can make your styles more dynamic. So one reason is like added complexity and being able to navigate that. But another reason is think of any project that you're doing, right? Or an app that you're working for a company like SalesLoft, and you have hundreds of different JS files, right? So think you'll have an index.js file. And then if you're using CSS, you'll have a matching index.css file. Then you'll test it. So you'll need an index.spec.ts file or JS files. And so 3 different files for one component. And then as it grows, you have your app.js and your form.js and your form input.js. That it's multiplied by 3. So this helps you to get rid of 1/3 of those number of files. And then for the newbies that come into your repo, they don't have to look around to figure out, okay, you know, I know that Shaundai styled this button so perfectly, but I cannot for the life of me figure out which style sheet it was or leverage those files anywhere else. So things like that. So it just helps, again, for making things cleaner, for getting all your colors organized, so to speak. I'm going to keep using that term. That's another reason why we might want to use styled components or CSS and JS.
Great. I mean, I'm into it. So I guess this might be a good point to actually start looking at some code because you're describing it and I'm interested. I want to see how it works. So let me switch over into the pair programming view here. So this is Sunil. He did this mock-up, but we're not talking about Sunil. Let's talk about Shaundai. Go follow her on Twitter right now. Go make that happen. Go get that follow in. And while you're at it, make sure you go and check out the Learn with Jason website. We have, as always, live captioning happening. We have Rachel with us today. Thank you very much, Rachel. She's from White Coat Captioning. And that is made possible by our sponsors. We've got Netlify, Fauna, Auth0, and Hasura, all making this show more accessible to more people. If you want to follow along with the captions, you can do that right on the homepage of learnwithjason.dev. And don't forget, these are linkable. Go check these sponsors out. So today we're talking about React specifically. So let me drop a link to that in the chat so y'all can go pull that up if you want. And then we're talking about styled components. So here is the styled components homepage. So I'm ready now. Like, you've got me sold on this. I want to write some functional React. I want to do some styled components. If I want to get started, what should I do first?
So the first thing is to open up your VS Code or wherever you're writing your code.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, we can open the terminal too.
Oh my goodness, I can't type. Here we go. 3rd time's a charm.
Beautiful. Okay, so yeah, we've got VS Code, and this was a mistake. Sorry, I should have said the first thing. The first thing to do is to install Create React App. We're going to use a tool for putting together our React code. So let's go back to the ancient times, back before Create React App existed. It took a lot of stuff to put together a React file that works in the browser. So little known fact, React doesn't right out of the box work in the browser. You need different things, Webpack, you need Babel to make it work and to make it function in the way that it should function. And so Create React App is this tool that allows you to just put in one command in the terminal command line and have all of this stuff packaged up beautifully and ready to go. So yeah, we'll use Create React App for this.
Excellent. And in the chat, somebody just found Sunil's post. This is the difference between this is a class-based component. So you can see there's context, there's data, there's styles. more context here. And then when we switch this over to a functional component, you can see the context groups up, the data groups up, the style groups up, and suddenly you've got a nicely, contextually grouped set of code. And it obviously also just gets much shorter, right? Like it's a little easier to read about. So I think that is a pretty beautiful comparison of the two styles and why this move was a good move on the side of React. I think that hooks gets a little bit of flack these days because a way that I've heard it described that I liked is that it takes what used to be hidden complexity and brings it right up to the front. And that I agree is, sometimes I don't want to know that all my stuff is broken, but it's probably better that we do. Okay, so I have create React app. Let me see if we want to get started. I can just run this right here.
Yep. So let's just copy, the first part.
I'm going to put it right in this folder using the dot like that.
Okay. Yep. And so this command is what's going to create the file. And then the next thing is going to be the name for it. Or that's in the documentation. That's the thing.
Yeah. So this is saying like it's going to create a folder called my app. Since I put in a dot, I already had a folder and I'm just going to have it use the folder I'm in, which is this one here, React and styled components.
Awesome. We are cooking.
And here we go. All right. See, the chat has rediscovered Flappy Jason. Does functional mean hook? That's a good question. Does it mean hook? really just got that going full blast today.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. We can look it up.
So I do know the answer to that. The difference is when you talk about functional components, you're talking about writing them as functions. Hooks make functional components more powerful, but they're not like required. You can write a component as a function. That's what we used to do for stateless components, or I've heard them called dumb components. But if you didn't need state, you could not write a React class. You could just write a function, and it was simpler to read, but then it would lack all of the class lifecycle hooks. So what hooks did was it let us write class style logic inside of functional components, but they aren't like, you don't need to use hooks to use functional components unless you need to use state and don't want to convert it to a class.
I see what the question was. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that. Let's see here. We've got ourselves a site. Let me pop this thing open. And all right, so first and foremost, we have installed kind of a basic app here. So I'm just kind of looking at what we've got. We've got the React scripts, we've got the React core, some testing so that we can test this thing, and then web vitals around performance, some basic scripts. Okay, this all seems like what we want. And then we've got our source here and some public stuff. So these are all like, that's a favicon.
Yeah, and so the public, so like I said, it gives you everything that you need to kind of go get up and running.
Mm-hmm.
The public folder is just, so Webpack is, I forget the term for it, a module bundler or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But what it does is it takes all of the dependencies and things that, the stuff that was in your JSON right now, and gives it to the browser in a way that the browser can understand it. So what it passes to the browser is something different. Everything that's in the public folder is stuff that the browser doesn't need to, that Webpack doesn't need to touch. So you don't really have to worry about too much of the complexities of how to manipulate this or what to put in public. But some things to know is that like the favicon is in there, which is the little icon in the tab browser. That's there. And there, yes, exactly. And then your index.html file is in there as well. So one thing to note about Create React App is that it allows you to easily create single page React apps. And so what I mean by single page is that we are essentially just displaying in every one of these apps, or every app created from this Create React app, just one HTML. So the way that I think about it is HTML is kind of like the skeleton of, or the frame of the house. And then we will paint it or repaint it with React and some styles. So the reason for React is it's a lot faster. You don't have to, like, if you click a button and the background changes, you're not rewriting the entire frame of the house. All you're doing is repainting it. So it just happens like that. You don't have to flip to another page. So where, you know, you may be used to building out, have like an index.html page and an about.html page, and you have to have separate stylings and separate JS maybe. This is all just getting rendered from the same one HTML, which has a link. And we can go, I think it's down toward the bottom of the same HTML file, sorry, inside the HTML, where so we're linking, there's a div with this ID root, and that's what we're linking to our JS. So all of our React files are going to be connected with this ID root. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because we're grabbing it here.
Right here. Exactly. And so this index.js is the parent of all of the React components. And I think in metaphor, so bear with me.
I love it.
I'm non-technical by trade originally. So this is for my salespeople out there. So this is like the family lineage. This is like the grand Mac Daddy, right? This is the one, this is the component that like sits in the big armchair. He gets the big piece of chicken. He walks around with no shirt on. Like, this is the daddy of all of the other React components, right? So all of the other components are just part of this family tree, and they stem from this app, index.js, okay? So this this React DOM.render function, it's a, React DOM is the HTML, the DOM, it's like this mystical virtual world. This is where we're doing all the painting. I'm sorry, Jason.
No, this is so good. I also think mostly in like metaphor and analogy. So this is so in my lane right now. I'm so happy that I'm not the only one who does this.
I sit up at night and think about like, how is this like a unicorn to me? Like, it sounds so silly. Yeah, learn the technical terms for stuff, but I'm going to explain it to you, like, and you'll understand it, and then you can find out what the technical terms are that match it. React DOM is the frame. This is where the skeleton is. And then this render is a function that takes two arguments. First argument is the element. Second argument is the container. So you have your cookies, and then you have the box that the cookies go into. We're saying that the app is what we want to put in the stop laughing. The app is what we want to put inside the container. And this document.element.id, which is root, where we're tagging the root tag, that's where we want it to go. So essentially, to explain it a third time, sorry, we have the frame, and we want this app component to be painted on the frame.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what that is. Okay, so we've got the granddaddy, and this is not the one that we're going to change. The one that we're going to change is the child of granddaddy. This is the mama one. This is app.js. So if we go in, so this is app.js. So let's go into this one. And this is a functional component already. So there are two different ways that you can render a function component. Some people favor this way because we're using the word function, then we'll say the name of what the component is, put the arguments inside these parentheses, and then open the curly brackets to put whatever functionality that we want to in there. My favorite way of doing it is to declare it like a variable. So may also be called like a fat arrow function, people call, but the first thing that I do with this component in particular is I just kind of like blow it up. So what we're going to do is take the function keyword, change that to a const, And after app, we put the beginning of an arrow. And then after the parentheses, put the rest of the fat arrow. Okay. And we have a component that works pretty much how it used to before. So this is the main thing. So it's really a matter of personal preference in what you decide. The reason why I like declaring it as a variable is because I think it looks cleaner. This is just, my own personal preference. I like to see the uniformity of all my variables in my functions to just start with const. But like I said, some people just like to see that actual function keyword and know right away that this is a function. But this is what we'll be working with today.
Yeah, no, this is great. I mean, and like you said, it all comes down to personal preference, right? Because this, functionally, this is equivalent to the other one, but really, it's whatever makes you feel like you like the code you're writing. And I think that for me, it's always a matter of consistency. I don't have a preference of const over function. I just like that.
Son of a biscuit.
What happened? You're mad because the dumpster fire is not on my head anymore. I've watched you, Chad. I'm just trying to ignore you. But yeah, so we've got you can use the function style, you can use the const style. Just keep it consistent. Make sure that your coworkers know what they're getting into when they dive into this code. But then down here, we export that so that we can get it here.
Yeah.
Aha.
So and there's there's two ways that you can, or three, I think, but there's two main ways that you can export it. And if you want to try something different, you can leave it as it is right now, or instead of the export at the bottom, the way that it is, one way to do it is to get rid of the export default app at the bottom, and then we'll just add the word export before the const when we make that declaration right there.
Okay.
The difference now, though, is if you go back to your index.js file, is that we need to add curly brackets around the word app because we're exporting it as, I think the term is a module.
A named export is it's now named instead of a default.
Okay. You're right, Jason. I was testing you.
Actually, this is one of the things that I really like about the new syntax is that this type of flexibility is available. I think when in the ancient days, as you called them, when we had to write common JS, where everything was like using require and you had to do like module.exports and stuff, that was a huge pain because we're writing node code for the browser. This is ES modules. This is web native. So, these days, if you weren't using JSX because that doesn't work in the browser, you could ship this much React straight to the browser without transpilation. You would just need to write this with like the JSX style function, which I don't recommend because it's not fun. It's like a lot of work to write out a React tree as a series of nested functions.
Right.
But so this, I'm into this. But so I can already see one thing that we talked about, which is you're not a fan of this here, this .css.
That is correct. And so this is bringing us back to our point where you need a separate CSS file. And then if I wanted to test this, I'm adding a third file for the same component. So we're going to blow it up as well. So we can just, let's just get rid of the export. How do you want to do you want to just ignore the app.css or do you want to just like delete it?
Let's delete it. Let's get it out of here. Should we try, let's do this though. Let's get this thing running so we can see what happens as we go. So if I can remember what the command is, we're using yarn and it's
run build
start, I think.
Yep, that's right.
This will give us a dev server. And open in the wrong window. How dare you? Okay, over here.
Wow. Disrespect.
Okay. Indeed, okay, so what we had before is when we have this style, we get, this is what the page looks like. And so I'm going to stick this one to the side. We'll stick this one over here. And then when I get rid of this, we now no longer have any styles, so everything starts to get a little squirrely. But we can also do things like hello, and it reloads really fast. So this is one of the things that I really love about Create React App is how quickly we can just like see things happen, right?
Right. Yeah. So everything's in real time. And if you're one of those instant gratification type of people like me, this is a great way to test and figure out what's going on. And you can see instantly when something breaks, and you'll get like a nice message that says it's broken.
Yeah, let me break it, and let's do that on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it even shows us like what's wrong here. That doesn't look right. Let's fix that. I see we're testing how long the beard goes. You can grow it off the screen, y'all. Okay, so then now we've deleted our app.css, or we're not importing it anymore. So at this point, I think do we need to install styled components or?
Yeah. And so let's go to the documentation. I know it by heart, but I just want to show you guys where it is.
Documentation.
Yep.
Probably get an installation.
Yep, installation.
Okay.
And then it will be, yes.
I'm gonna grab, yeah, we're using yarn, so I'm gonna grab the yarn one. So let me do that. Nope, not that button. This button. Oh my goodness. Try that one more time. There we go. All right, so we're getting styled components added here. And then once that's in like that, I will start the server again, and let's see if it's gonna use my same window. I think it will. It did, okay. That's one thing that I really like about Create React App is that it's smart enough to like keep the tab so it doesn't keep opening new windows. That makes me really happy.
Yeah.
All right, and now if I look, we've got styled components. So
behold, my bucket.
Indeed. So, okay, so now I'm ready.
Great. Okay, so the first thing that you'll do is import styled components. And you'll need to do this in any file that you're going to use CSS in JS, so where you're actually using your stylings. So import styled from, yeah.
We'll let autocomplete do the work.
Beautiful. This is great.
All right.
Amazing. All right, so now we can add some styles. So let's just play with it. So let's change the background color. The way that you'll use style components at a very basic level is, and this is up to you how you want to do it. I'm giving you the way that I do it. So on line 3, we're going to do this before we do our function declaration and all that good stuff. You could do it after, it'll still work the same way. So we're going to do const, like we're naming something. So we're going to replace the div. So let's do
this
capital.
One here.
Yeah, we're going to do capital D div is what we're going to name it. Equals style dot.
Ooh, look at the autocomplete.
Yes.
And I'm going to make an assumption that we want a div.
We do want a div. And
Okay.
I'll explain what we're doing in just one second. And then we'll do the backticks. So do 2 backticks. Okay, perfect. So what you're looking at now is we have declared a variable called div. We're going to use the capital word D because we don't want to, and this is the same thing with your React components. You need to use a capital letter because HTML tags are all using lowercase letters, and to avoid having confusion between the browser and your brain and your app, you need to use capital letters for this is really a component. So we want to use capital letters for all of your components. So we're using capital D div. You could call it whatever you want to. So this could be capital D div. It could be capital D dog, whatever you want it to be. What's important though is that you use the word style and then you'll tag it to whatever HTML element you're using to replace it. In this case, we're going to be replacing it with a div. Or replacing a div with capital D div. So we want it style.div.
And then I just drop this right in, right?
Exactly. Yep. And so that is how now we have a style div. So
Okay.
they're linked. They're linked together.
And I
And
saved it and nothing happened, but that's to be expected because we haven't added any style yet, right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we need to add some style. So let's do a background color. So I would, yeah,
And
enter
do I
in
just write like plain CSS in here?
plain CSS.
All
Exactly.
right. What's our background color? What's your favorite color?
Pink is my
Okay.
favorite color.
Okay. Yeah.
This is pretty. This is like a work of art, basically.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I'm getting a little misty eyed. This is pretty good. So yeah, so you can add any type of styling that you want in here. Let's make a height of 100
Hoofda. All right.
VH.
So that's exciting.
Sorry, what was the
100 VH. I like
100
these
VH?
distractions. Yeah.
Trollers.
It's a beautiful thing. Okay. Yeah, so it looks really good. Let's add some more stuff. Let's do let's center it. Let's center everything. Let's display flex. This is my magic trick. Display flex.
Oh, so we would need.
And
Is that right?
flex direction is column.
Column.
And justify content, yes, content center, and align item center.
Line items. Center.
Cool.
Beautiful. Look at it go.
Yeah, so we put everything in the middle, guys.
And also, I will say,
Behold, my bucket.
indeed, we just vertically centered something in CSS, which I know is an old joke, but I actually do like to point it out whenever it happens that this is how far we've come, where you don't have to like do anything wild. You can just say, I would like this to be centered, please, and it just works.
Yeah, yeah. And like when I was first learning, I know Flex had come out before then, but I hadn't learned it
You
yet.
hackers,
And
you
I went
dirty hackers.
extreme extent to be able to center divs. I was like, add a little helper at the top and like make sure it's the same size. And then if people scroll down, God forbid, like it just got so chaotic. So these 3 or 4 lines of CSS it's present in every single app that I built. Okay, so we did that. We centered a div. And so same situation if you're trying to do like IMG, a header or anything like that, all you have to do is tag whatever HTML element it is with the styled tag and use a template literals, and you can fill anything in.
So if we want to make this image, we'll do a style.image. And then I can, let's say we want to give this like a set width of, we'll say 20% of the screen. And then actually that's probably enough to start, right? And then I can just swap this right on out.
Yeah, so you just replace in the tag.
And it does the thing. So let's make it bigger. Look at it go. That's great, right? How great is it that we can do that sort of thing? And then I can also give it a height of 20. Oops. What's going on? There. Right? Okay. So I don't know why it doesn't like my actual width. It's like my background is doing something weird. It's okay. Everything is fine. Oh, yeah. You know what I bet it is? I bet they've got some empty space on it so that it doesn't smash against the side of the screen.
Oh, like a little bit of padding or something.
Yeah. Okay. We can make it a little bit bigger to kind of, accommodate for that.
Cool.
Heyo. Beautiful.
Great. Awesome. So yeah, and I think this looks shippable basically right now. So and I'm glad that you did this one, because you can see that even on the image, we're still giving it the same props. So it's extending all of the same image props that an image has, like the SRC, the class name, and all that good stuff, the alt, all the same. The only thing that we're replacing is we're turning this into a component now, a JS or React component. And now we're able to just use our CSS styles and extend those in here as well. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, and this is, and I can see how this does get kind of nice if we're talking about, the image that we were looking at from Sunil, where we see the color coding of things. Like now we've got this big color block of styles, and then we've got markup down here, and we don't have the mixture of like doing inline styles, which is, and there's no problem with that, right? Like there's a lot of good things to be said about things like Tailwind. There's a lot to be said about pulling it out to CSS modules. You can do this any way you want. This all comes down to personal preference and what you and your team decide are the best thing. So this isn't nobody's telling you what to do. Do what you like. Right?
Yeah. Agreed. I love that. Yeah. So let's do something. What I was thinking we could do is do like an input. And so like I explained before, what one of the other advantages of style components is that it allows you to use JavaScript functionality and make your styles dynamic as well. Mm-hmm. So we can add some dynamic properties to our styles and test the waters with that. So let's get rid of the contents that we have here, the image, the hello text, the learn React, and let's work with let's do an input and a button. So I like that header, so we can leave that there.
Okay.
Let's put an input and just one button, and yeah, we can start with just like some basic stuff, and then we can build on that.
Okay, so here's our basic button.
Yep. And so all these styles are just the basic, whatever HTML gives us.
Mm-hmm.
So let's add some basic styling to the input. So let's change that to a styled component. So we're going to call it whatever you want. Let's say input. Tag the input.
Okay.
That's cool. Awesome.
There's that. And then I can do the same thing for button. Mm-hmm. So we'll do a styled button.
Yep.
And chat, I see your questions about using this other places. We will have a chance to do a little bit of that shortly. So stay tuned. Okay, so we've got our styled button. And now you were saying you wanted to do some dynamic stuff with this, which I am very excited about.
Yeah. So let's just add some basic sound. Let's give it a color like green or something.
Okay. On the button.
Sorry, the button. Background color is green, and the color...
we're making this thing pretty. Okay. Oh no, that's not what I meant to do at all. I meant to do border none. Okay.
This is so sexy. Let's make the color white.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay. So sorry if I get really animated. Like I said, I have a 3-year-old, so I'm just like, you did a good job. This is great.
I live for it. I'm like, yes, please validate me.
Yay. All right. I love it. Okay. So we've got our button. Now, let's say we want to, okay, I'll show you this first. Let's say we want to make a second button, and the use case for this, right? So at SalesLoft, what the team that I'm a part of builds our component library.
Mm-hmm.
For those who aren't familiar with what a component library is, you're working on a giant platform, right? And marketing comes out with all these beautiful styles. This is what our buttons are going to look like. They're all going to be green with white letters. And that button is going to be used in a million different places in the app.
Yes.
It may be used just exactly like this, but it also may have different scenarios where it's an icon only button, or maybe it's just a different variant of it where it's a red button because it wants to tell you that this is not allowed. But essentially it's all the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We build the component library where all of that stuff lives. So any other engineers on our team can just pick from and say, okay, I want this button, add in a number of variants, and use it wherever they want instead of rebuilding it. And so it's
right.
really good when you get the things that are complex, like we have a calendar, like a date picker.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having to do all that lift of building that from scratch, You just pull it out from our component library, import it into whatever you're building, and start with this nice foundation.
Yeah.
So let's say we're building a component library, right? So we just started with our basic button. This is what our button is going to look like, and any other engineers can use it. So let's say another engineer wants to use the same button, but they want the color to be blue. So let's just copy and paste this entire button function thing. Sorry, style component. I'm going to start being more technical. So, and then we're going to change the name, blue button. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a styled. And so what we're going to add to the first line, line 24, is after the word button, so styled.button, add some parentheses before the backtick and put in the word button.
Do I need to quote it or anything?
Capital B button.
Oh, capital B button.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what we're doing here, yeah, like how we talked about extending the styles for the image, right? Where we're still using the same properties. Now we're extending the properties of that capital B button on line 17. So
I don't need this anymore, do I? Like I just need the thing I'm overriding?
Exactly. Yeah. So you're extending all of that border, the color and all that stuff. But the background color will change. So let's put the button in so that we can see what it looks like. And it's going to be called blue button.
So we can put another one of these in, and then we can just say blue button.
Mm-hmm. Let's put the text as like, yeah, something different.
Oh no, I did something wrong. What have I done? What did I do? Default.button is not a function.
What did we do wrong?
Is it just like styled without the dot button?
No. Oh yeah, sorry, it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Let's. Hey, look at it go.
Awesome. Yeah. I like to make mistakes on camera so that people can see that. Even Shaundai, even Beyonce's sister, is not perfect. So now you guys know the truth. Okay, so we did it. We made a blue button, and so yeah, so this is our first extension of our component library. So yeah, guys, we're cooking. Okay, and so now let's add some dynamic properties. So let's say that this is it's going to change color depending on what's in the input box. So what we're going to need to do first probably is add some state to the input box.
Okay.
And be able to have the system be able to figure out whether or not the input box is empty. So let's say if it's empty, we want to disable the button. And if it's not, then we want to disable it. We won't make the functionality work, but we just want to color it blue. Okay. So we'll let's start with bringing in state. So we're going to use hooks now. So go to the top and we'll import use state. And it's probably worth explaining like props and state, right? You think?
It probably doesn't hurt to give it a quick minute. Okay.
All right. So trying to think of a metaphor. Okay, so
let's go ready.
Back to I got it. The React family, right? We have the granddaddy, we have the mama, which is our app, right? There are different things that I can pass down as the mother app. So this is the parent versus the child, okay? We are separate components because we're separate people and we can only do so much. Same thing with components. They can only do so much. They should only have so much functionality. It's really an art, not a science, but the way that I separate my components is I just want one component to do one thing, right? If you are the parent component, you can pass things to your child. Those things are called props, all right? So I am the template. I am this app declaration export const app on line 28.
Mm-hmm.
I can pass things to my child. I can pass features. He's going to have curly hair. He's going to have chocolatey skin. He's going to look cute because he gets all this from me, right? I'm going to pass all that down to him, and that's natural. But if I want to change anything, if I want to add any props, and let's say he has dimples, I don't have dimples, right? But I want to pass that down to him, I can pass it down as a prop. So I can pass that down, but he can't pass dimples up to me because I'm the parent, okay?
Right.
So I can pass props parent to child. Did it all make sense?
I honestly, I was like, how are we going to bring this one home? And you nailed it. You stuck the landing. It was perfect.
Props that's the word. So I bring prop in. So I can pass my props down to my baby. He cannot pass props to me. Parent can pass it to child. Child cannot pass it to parent.
No, that's, yeah.
Yeah. State is something different. State is like my emotional state. I'm happy. I come in as I'm happy. That would be the state that I start with. I can pass the state to my child. I can pass happiness to him. I can give him candy and he's happy too. He can have a function that manipulates my state. So he can throw a temper tantrum and he can make me angry. He can change my state to angry.
Okay.
Just like his state is angry. Okay. And if he wants to change that for any of his siblings, he can go through me and change state as well. He can make me angry and I can pass that as state.
This is so good. Like, this is truly outstanding.
Love that? Do you love that?
So good.
I'm gonna write a speech on that, man. Okay, so that's props and state. For anybody who's not technical, hopefully that
Nikki wants to know, does React strict mode help with temper tantrums?
Love that. I think it creates more. But yes, so good. We can keep going. The React family, I love it. So that's state. And so we'll keep this analogy going. So what we're going to do is we're going to set state, right?
Okay.
So const, this is the way that this is the syntax, right? So const, and then it's an array.
Okay.
The first part of the array is going to be the state, not the actual state. This is what we're calling state. So yeah, that's cool. Oh, sorry. What are we changing? The input value. So let's call it input value, input camel case. Input value is going to be our state.
Okay.
The second element in the array, so we'll do a comma, is going to be the set state function. So this is the name of a function that we'll use. So remember I said, my son can change my state. This is the function that he's using to make me angry. This is the temper tantrum function.
Got it.
The common syntax is set and then the name of whatever the state is. So set input value.
Set input value. Okay. And then this is the result of this function that we just imported?
Yes, this use state hook. So use state is what your starter state is going to be. So it was, for me, in this case, it was happy, but we don't want this to be anything right now. This is our input value, and we just want to leave that blank. So
leave it blank. Okay.
Yeah, let's leave it as that. You could put maybe some parentheses or something if you want.
We could make it like an empty string since it's going to be our input value. We want it to be empty by default.
I like that. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Okay. So we have a value. How do we make this? Because right now it's not showing. Like if I save, it doesn't say anything. And if I made this, happy. So how do I actually get this in here?
Right. So we're going to need to create a function that handles this input value or is able to understand what's inside of it. So on every input, the basic HTML, there is, and I don't know the technical term for you guys could probably expect that. It's called e.target.value. So it is
the event, yeah.
The event, yeah. And so there's a method on it that we can pull in to our function. And basically what we'll be doing is saying that if e.target.value changes, or if it exists, we're going to change the color. Okay.
So I've got my event, and then
and let's go back to the arrow function syntax. So
I got you.
Yeah. Again, it's a matter of personal preference. We could have did it the same way, Jason, that you were going to do it, but let's let's stick with what I said.
Yep, stay
Okay.
consistent.
Yeah. Okay. And so we'll handle change. So on change, and actually before we go through and add some functionality to the button, let's tag this with, let's connect it with our input. So on the input, there is a prop, a method called onChange. And so basically what that's looking for is anytime the function changes, or anytime a change happens within this input, it's going to call this function. So we're going to set that equal to this handle change.
Okay.
Beautiful. Okay. And then let's see. So what we want to do is identify whether or not there's anything inside of the input. So let's say, and I had some colors already picked out that I wanted to do. So, okay, cool. So let's say that anytime that this changes, we want to set the state of the input value to whatever the e.target.value is. So we're going to call in that state handler.
Set it. So we just want to set it straight up. Whatever the target value is, we want to set this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And so then to get the value to show up in our input, because right now I think it's doing it, but is it in the state?
It's not gonna, yeah. We can link it up if you want, but
because I think what we can do is if we just set it like the value equals the input value, then when we type, it should be there. But also now if we set it to like happy, it starts as happy, and we can edit it around. And then I think too, if we actually, let's just log this, right? Like let's console.log the e.target.value, and then we can see as we type. Hey.
Awesome.
Oh wait, but I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? Changing an uncontrolled. Do I have to use initial value, chat? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And now is it going to stop yelling at me? Changing a controlled input to be uncontrolled? What? What? Default value.
So but we have to use it. Oh, I see.
Let's clear this. Let's just refresh this.
Cool.
No more yelling.
Yay.
Okay, so that's me just forgetting how everything works. But by doing this now, we can set it to be our default state, which I am very happy about. Okay. So now we have this. We have our values. It's updating the way that we want it to, which makes me happy.
Yep. Okay. And so now what we want to do is add some dynamic properties to our style components. So let's say we're going to manipulate the background color, right? And let's start with two different options for colors, and we'll clean this up as we go. But let's just add maybe a ternary to the button. So we can do this actually up where we're declaring the styles for the button.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And we can say, so instead of the sea green, we're going to do a $sign. So we're injecting some JavaScript.
Gotcha.
With some JSX and curly brackets. And then so inside of here, we can put in some dynamic styling. So we can say wait, how would I do this? I think this should work, but we could play with it. So if e.target.value, or sorry, if input value exists. Oh, and sorry, there are two different ways you can do an if statement as well. So you can do the if. You can also do, this is another way, a third way.
Like a ternary?
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. Like if input dot value, and you don't even actually have to put the dot length. You can just say if input value, it's what it's going to return is a true or false.
Yeah.
And so we say if what it's asking is if input value exists, question mark. The first thing is what happens if it's true. And the second thing is what happens if it's false. So let's put in one parenthesis, a single parenthesis, we'll say like sea green if it's true.
Like that?
Yeah. And then we'll put a colon and we'll put black. Let's do that if it's not true.
Okay. Oh, I screwed something up. Oh, we have to get the input value. So is that in, we have to get the props here, right?
We do have to get the props, yes. And so what we can do, I'm just like, I have the documentation pulled up too. So I think we can do props is and then do an arrow to it inside of the function.
Oh, like this?
Yes.
Okay, so then we need to pass this down?
Props, yeah, to the button.
Okay, so then if I do input value equals input value.
You got it?
Why are you yelling at me? No, you're good. You're fine. You're fine. Okay, so now it shows black, that's good. That means that our code is doing what it's supposed to. We don't have an input value. But now if I say something, it's green. If I delete it all, it's black again.
Beautiful. Yeah.
All right. Hey.
We added some functionality. Right. So again, sorry, that was so confusing. So if it's true, that's what this function on line 18 is saying. If their input value exists, it's going to be sea green. And then if there's nothing in there, we're going to disable it. Really, we're just changing the style, but it's going to be black. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Dynamic properties to it. And you see that the other button still didn't change. So the blue button that we made doesn't change because the level of specificity, which is CSS uses these rules of specificity to determine what styles are actually rendered in the DOM. This declaring it as blue button and then overriding the styles here, this makes it more like these rules. These are like the number one rules for it. So it's going to
right. But now this one we overrode the background color. But like if we take our regular color here and we say like instead of making it'll be white then, but we can make it like gray otherwise. So now we can see that like it did inherit there.
Yeah, and then type some text inside of it.
But we're not putting the initial value into the blue button. So then if I do exactly this thing, ta-da! Right? So you can inherit that logic. It's just whether or not you want to.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, so I'll put this back so that we don't have that. Oh no, what have I done? Oh, you don't quote it because it's not. Okay. Look at that go. I mean, this is beautiful. I love the the kind of the proximity that you get with this, where you can see, I'm in my component, I can see what's happening. How do you control for because I can see here we've already created quite a bit of components. So you mentioned that you're at SalesLoft, you're using these and you're doing like a design system. Yes. So how do you keep these from getting overwhelming?
We would make another component. So we can break this up into another component. And let's do that so that you can see kind of what that looks like, because yeah, you're right. It is getting kind of crowded. So we'll make a child.
Okay, so I'm just going to create a new file. And then what did you want to split out?
Let's put the buttons in a different folder. I'm sorry, in a different file. So let's just call it button.js.
Okay.
And we're going to take our button stylings. And
okay, so I'm just pulling those straight out, dropping them in here, which means I also need style components.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, and notice how Jason kept styled import in both files because we're going to be we're using that style for the inputs as well.
Yeah, like we're using it here, we're using it for the input, so we have to have it available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then we're going to take the buttons themselves. And so what we'll need to do is declare a new name for a component because we're all of those buttons are inside of our app component. Now let's do export const capital B button.
Okay. And do we want to export like both of them? Like we could just kind of do one of these and one of these. Oops.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see what you were doing. So yeah, so this is one way that we could, okay. Let me take a step back.
Okay.
What Jason's doing right now is just exporting the colors for the buttons that we did. And this is completely valid. You can do that and then export button and blue button, and then you can import them into app.js and it'll still work. This is still kind of like a separate style sheet though, because we don't have actual buttons or functionality. So what I was thinking, we were on two different paths, both totally valid, is to add in the buttons, the functionality for the buttons, and then have this be its own separate component. So what this component is going to be is its own little package of the button, the functionality, the styles, and we're going to just pass down state to our children. We're going to pass it to our children. So we're exporting const button. Yep. And you're importing your prop. And then we're going to, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, just renaming so that I don't have the collision with this one.
Okay, awesome. And then we'll take, from app.js, we'll take the buttons and the props that were in there. Just steal button and blue button from here.
Okay, so how do you, like, would we kind of take this out and make it something that you would control with, like, a background color of some sort, or like how would you do this if you were, because we probably wouldn't like export two buttons from this file, which I'm realizing we're currently not returning anyways.
Yeah, we're really just we just kind of did that for style's sake. We don't really need the blue button. If like another way that you could do it to make it cleaner is to have one file that's dedicated to the basic button. So like one default button file, that would be the styling for default button, and then the functionality for a default button. Then you would have a separate file for a blue button that might, or may not even be a blue button, it might just be a style that you declare at the top of another file that's only lines 10 to 12 and import, like it just adds the extra styling to it.
And like we don't have to use just one of these, right? Like if we use default button to make button and then I were to wrap like this button, does that, like, would that work? Can I?
Yes, it would. I want to see how it plays out, but yes, it's not going to have any styling on it or anything.
Let's see what happens. I'm just going to export this and let's see what happens when I do it. So we've got our default button. So we need to actually change this over to be a default button, right? Okay. So now theoretically speaking, if I swap out, so if I import my default button and blue button from button, then I need to actually get button, not default button. So I get button, I get blue button. And then down here, we're still using button and blue button. And assuming, let's just see what happens. Let's try it. So I'm saving it. Okay, so it kept the default styles. It didn't apply the override.
Yeah, so let's go.
But it does work.
Love it. Yeah, and I think if we go back, yes, so like I said, it's not adding in any additional, wait, so we're not using blue button anymore.
We exported it, so the one at the bottom here is blue button, But I think what you were saying is if you were going to do this, you would just put this at the top, but then how would that apply to the background color of the button?
So yeah, so what I was going to do is instead of having these buttons here at all, like instead of having or sorry, you would have them here, but build out the entire button in the button.js file. So that's going to be your single.
Oh, I got you. So, okay, so let's get rid of one of these, and then when we're dealing with just get rid of that one too, and let's look at actually building out the button, right? So let me get rid of this blue button that we're not using, and now we're in here. So we're building out the whole button. So you're saying like even the text and stuff you're wanting to pull out.
The text, all that stuff could stay in here. You can add it as a prop. I'm not going to overcomplicate it, but yeah. So let's, for the sake of this, let's just keep everything here button wise. And then we will use this as our single source of truth. And then, so this button is going to be a child of app.js. So we'll still need it. Like this button will still work and all that stuff, but it may not be called button.
Yeah. So this is much simpler here. We can see like we've kind of simplified this down to where we know we need a button. We know we need to pass in the input value.
Yeah.
And then,
but our styles aren't working yet. So, and the reason why is because we just have, like, this button doesn't actually have any style. So if we export instead, if we exported default button,
this one's working. So we are getting our styles are working.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, perfect.
It was the override, which I think to override, we'd have to like grab something from the props and make sure that it like ended up down on this one, which I feel like I've seen there's something in the style components docs about like composing that, but we don't have to do that today.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you've got your nice little neat styles. And again, you can, if you have like a big app and you want to use this, where you can use it in multiple places. And then I think, I don't know if we even have time to go through kind of, there are different ways that you can add different stylings to it. So say, or here, let's go through this example. So let's say we want to, we have a scenario where we have different types of buttons at the company. We have our sea green button, which is our default button, but we may have a disabled button color that's common across the company, and a destructive color, which is if you're going to delete everything inside of your app, this is what the color is. Okay. And so what we'll do is we'll change the background color based on whatever this prop is.
Okay.
So let's make a new disabled, we're going to make an object that holds all of the colors. Sorry, it shouldn't be disabled. It should just be like background color or something. We're going to change const background color, and we'll make it an object that has, let's say default is sea green. So default comma, yep, sea green. Let's make a disabled color, which would be gray.
Okay.
And let's make a destructive color, which would be red. And this is a common situation, right? So now what we can do is pass in these colors as different options for our colors. And there's ways that you can get like really complicated with this, like, or not super, like you can say like different variants, and then all you would have to do is when somebody uses a button from your component library, all they would have to do is say this button is default, and it would do the background colors, the font colors, the size, the hover colors, and all of that based on whatever you have set as your default. So we're just doing like a small example of where you would get started with something like this.
Sure.
Okay, so we will have background color be one of the props that we can pull from for this.
And should we line it up with like what its function is, so I can say like by my type by default is it's a default button, but then I can pass in that it's a destructive type or a disabled type, so that you know it like that way we're not describing the style, we're describing the function, and then the style can support that function.
I like that. That's good.
Cool. Okay, so then if I guess I would do the same thing here. I would do type equals type, and then I guess we can move this thing up above our styled component because we're going to use it in there.
Right.
And I like to declare things before I use them. But so then this changes a little bit, right? So we can do something like instead of.
So yeah, one option might be instead of, and this is just like the low hanging fruit, right? Instead of saying props.input value, sea green and black, you could say background color dot whatever the props is. So it's looking for the props is going to be looking for this term like default. So we could say that if it's default, we want the default color. So it'd be background.
So we can, we could do like background color around props dot type. Is that what you meant, or am I still doing a check for like the input value?
No, this is fine. Just let's keep going this way. And
then I guess we could like, actually, if I take this and I go back to where we were, then like if we don't have a value, we can go to background color dot disabled. But here we can do the props type. So then theoretically speaking, so it's disabled now. It comes in, we get sea green. But then if I come out here and I mark it as like type destructive, then when I start typing, it goes red.
Exactly.
Look at that. Look how slick that is. So we were able to very quickly say, you know, this is and now I know what it is. I know that this is the destructive button. Instead of having to look at the styles to kind of intuit that a red background probably means destructive. So I can, I like this. I like the descriptiveness of it.
Right. And so now like we're just adding a level of dynamic capabilities to your CSS. So as we're building this component library, nobody has to remember all of the different props that you put on a button or copy and paste all of the stylings and things like that you put on the original button that you built for the rest of the company. All they have to do is say, okay, this button in this place should be a destructive button. So it's going to be red. And it already comes with all of the different props, the functions and things like that make it work. They just have to declare which type of button it is. So,
right. And we can take this even a step further, like keeping on your mama component. So you can have like further nested children. And so we can just make whatever's in here show up as the button text, and then that means that out here we can take our button and say like delete me, right? And now it will respond to us. But then if we wanted to take this out, and then this one's not destructive, and maybe this one has we just want it to always be, that one always is on, and then we can say like add. Now we have like buttons that look like what they're supposed to do. We can kind of see that happening, right? I love this. This is really, really cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is up, C# Fritz? Thank you for the raid. Welcome everybody. We're just coming down to the end, so stay tuned though, because here in about 10 minutes we're gonna go raid somebody else. We've been making React components today. What is up, y'all? That's a good, I like that raid emote. That's a good one. But yeah, welcome. Thank you for hanging out. So Shaundai, what else should we look at? Like, are there other resources that people should dig into? Like if they want to go further with this, is there somewhere that you would recommend for kind of getting stuck in? Anywhere else in the last few minutes we've got?
Yeah, good question. So I did see someone asking like if style components works with TypeScript, and it does, yes. So it works with JavaScript. I would start with looking at the documentation, and I know that it can be a little bit confusing everybody has different learning styles. So start with the documentation, look through it. I think for style components, it's very explanatory, and I'm more of a video type of person, so I was able to take a lot from it. But I would say start there with style components. Also, any JS libraries, learning React, there are so many great courses out there. I'm a big advocate for Egghead, so just go to Egghead, find out what courses there are. The way that I learned originally was from Codecademy, so I would also recommend Codecademy as well as a good option for learning that and learning more. Absolutely. But yeah, if you go to the style components, or when you go to the style components documentation, there are examples of different ways that you can incorporate style components into different types of scenarios. So the things that we talked about just kind of scratch the surface what style components can do. But I think it's important to really understand that there is a huge use case for it. And it's not, I'm not saying I'm married to a certain technology or anything like that. There's a number of different options for you. But the reasons why I like it, it's just a lot cleaner, a lot easier to read. And for somebody new to your repo, if they're coming in, it's easy for them to recognize.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a good point, which is that when you're writing code, it's not just instructions to the computer, it's instructions to future maintainers. Code is a communication platform, and if the code that you write is easy for somebody to read and to understand, then you've done a good job of communicating to them that is how you should dive in, and I know where to start, I know what to edit, I know what this thing does. I'm significantly better set up to succeed than if I'm doing this off of guesses and what I can figure out by breaking it and seeing what changes on the screen, right?
Yeah, and there's so many stories, like myself, every day I'll go back to some code and I'll be like, oh my God, who wrote this? And it was me. And it has every developer right. to write code that your future self will love. So really practice getting clean code, or figuring out what syntax works best for you, best for your eyes, and what you like to see. Like maybe it is that function keyword, or maybe you like the const like I do. But figure out what that is, and then stick with it, keep practicing, and separate things out as much as possible. But yeah, strong advocate for all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just makes such a big difference. So for, I guess from here, where should somebody go if they want to learn more about you?
About me, I'm always on Twitter. So you can find me. So one of the perks of having a unique name is that my first name is a handle for everything. So if you look, and I'm one of the only Shaundays out there, and I'm the only Shaundai person out there. So if you ever Google Shaundai Person, you'll find me. But at Twitter, Shaundai, at Shaundai Twitter, at Shaundai for Dev, at Shaundai for GitHub. You can find me. I am at Salesloft in Atlanta, and I'm also an Egghead instructor as well, working on my first course. Do you want to have input on what my first course is? Because I have until midnight tonight to really.
What do you think, chat? What do you want to learn? Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna go follow Shaundai on Twitter, and you're going to tweet at her what you want to learn from her. I want to learn how the React component family gets along. Like I want more of this visual metaphor because it's so good.
Yeah, I will button that up, and we'll do that. Yeah, your options are either TypeScript or React or style components. So let me know what you want to hear more about. If it is the React family, I think I love that too. I think that's a really good idea. So it may be the React family.
I think it's great. We've got votes for it in the chat. State, yep, something with metaphors, agreed. I think it should definitely have lots of metaphors. No, I can't wait to see what you create. I've had a whole lot of fun learning from you today. I think this is going to be it's going to be a great course. So, make sure to shout about it so that we can all go and watch. And with that, chat, I think we are in great shape to start wrapping this one up. So make sure you remember we've had live captioning this whole show on the learnwithjason.dev homepage. That's made possible by Rachel, who's here from White Coat Captioning. Thank you so much, Rachel, for hanging out with us. And captioning is made possible through the generous support of our sponsors, Netlify, Fauna, Auth0, and Hasura, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people. Shaundai, any parting words before we send everybody off to the rest of their collective Thursdays?
Happy Earth Day. Everybody.
Happy Earth Day. I love it. I love it. Shaundai, you are a joy. Thank you so much for hanging out. This was such a pleasure. I hope to see you again. And chat, stay tuned. We're gonna go find somebody to raid. We'll see you next time.